Thanks for tuning into the market wrap. I'm Niraj Nickey Mirchandani, and it's the final market wrap for the calendar year, and it's turned out to be a good day. Even though we haven't closed above 14,000, we nudged the 14,000 mark, and I think that's the telling statistic. So we'll probably try and combine for the day and for the maybe for the year as well. This is for the day, of course. Let me start off with that. And the day was uneventful, you would have to say, as the close suggests, hardly any movement there. And even on the stock side, hardly any movement. We've seen some of the laggards, the likes of Shree Cement, etc., continue to grind lower. Remember the last 1,000 points, Shree Cement has not budged an inch, and otherwise cement companies have actually done really well. But in today's session, some of the banking names too, what came under a bit of a stake, Reliance was a bit quiet as well. What did well? To an extent, select pharma names, the likes of Sun and Divi's and Dr. Reddy's. And IT, by virtue of the kind of deal wins that they're doing, as a Nomura report, which lays out how large cap IT has had some stellar deal wins. So maybe those were doing okay. But let's get Nikki in to talk about maybe the stock of the day or how the day or the year has shaped up as well. Nikki, good afternoon. And what are you picking up?
Well, at this point of time, it's an uneventful day, but I'm sure you would agree with me that it was quite an eventful year, and we're not going to forget this one at least. In terms of the market performance, if the roundup, of course, it's the Nifty IT and the Nifty FMCG, which have done really well for the entire year. They're up with gains of around 60% when it comes to pharma index, and when it comes to the IT index, the gains are to an extent of around 54 odd percent. In terms of outperformance areas that I'd like to highlight between the two of them, for the pharma index, of course, it's TV's Lab, where the stock has been outperformer with gains of more than 105 odd percent. So clearly some amount of splendid gain. Not just that, not just a top performer coming in for Nifty Pharma Index. Apart from that is also the top gainer that we've seen for overall Nifty index, which for the year has rallied to an extent of 14%. When it comes to the IT index, it's actually L&T Infotech, which has managed to outperform, and the gains are to an extent of around 107 odd percent. So clearly strong amount of traction building in on both these defensive counters as such. And when it comes to the laggards, I think it's the PSU Bank Index, which is down and out by as much as 30.5% for the entire year, which took a hit, And when it comes to the outperformer within that index, all the components of that index were down, but it's only a Bank of Maharashtra typically which has done well, and it's managed to keep their head above the water with gains of around 1.6 odd percent or close to 1.2 odd percent for the entire year. Apart from that, what really stands out for me in the entire year, one particular stock that I'd like to highlight is Adani Green. That stock has probably eked out gains of more than 500%. So that's a splendid rally coming in for Adani Green. So quite an eventful year. But what's your reading on the entire year? Anything that stood out for you and any specific performance that you'd like to talk about?
I mean, it's been a great time for metals because everybody's kind of ignored and everybody thought that it is pharma and IT and telecom which will do it. But I think metal index from the lows has just done exceptionally well. And so a special mention of that. And you can't really ignore what Dixon Tech has done, right? I mean, yeah, this is the metal space and 16% returns, yes, but from the lows, I think the kind of gains, the kind of that the Tata Steel sales, JSW Steel and GSP have done have been spectacular. And just one, actually, since we are on the topic of the year, Dixon Technologies deserves a special mention. I don't think that in too many years you would find a fundamentally sound company having such a mammoth run for the year at large, and with most people believing that the gains are not done as yet. So yes, you will see that it optically we look at from 4,000, it's gone to about 13.5 odd, but from the March lows of about 2,000 odd for the stock to rally to about 13.5, that's a 6x jump. And that's quite spectacular. And a lot of people believing that the rally is not over. But very quickly, before we speak to individual names, just a brief mention about today's trade as well, the broader end of the spectrum before I hand it back to Nikki for what is standing out for her. If you just look at the MOE function on the terminal today, remember yesterday was a bit of a turnaround for the market break. In today's session, the indices stayed very, very flat. So the Nifty didn't have too much to do. But the broader end of the spectrum had enough and more movers. Cement came off in the session today, whereas real estate stayed really strong. and the market breadth was almost even Stevens. Sterling Wilson Solar, we hear some local mutual fund has bought some stake, so that stock did really well for itself. Soba has done well. APL Apollo Tubes at 883, arguably stock that we showed you as the best performer on the metal index, also has done well. Nicky, broader end of the spectrum, you already mentioned one name which stood out, and yes, Adani Green and then Adani Group stocks were quite the buzzwords. But what else?
Yeah, I mean, couple of stocks, Niraj, I think in the large cap stocks, of course, you had JSW, Tata Steel and SAIL. These stocks have been doing too well. Of course, the names have been standing out when it comes to not just the session, but also the entire year. But in today's session, I'd like to highlight Spark because that's one of the top gainer that we have in terms of the Nifty small cap index, gains as much as 10.7% odd in the trade. And it's the biggest single day gain that we've seen probably since June this year. Trading at the highest level since Feb, in fact, and the volumes are almost 14 times its 20-day average volumes. And RSI also is at 64. So clearly one of the outperformers that we're speaking about. What also stood out to me in trade today was Soba because, that particular counter did extremely well in trade today. Morgan Stanley, in fact, came up with a report on Indian property and they said that the Q3 sales, is showing at this point of time a sequential recovery. Although on year-on-year basis, the numbers still remain lower and they're down by as much as 40-odd%. They expect the recovery to accelerate in 2021. At this point of time, long leasing is pretty slow, but then they expect the recovery fully to come by mid 2021. But this counter is clearly an outperformer and we're seeing significant up move coming in that. But any specific things that you will keep an eye out on, Niraj, given that tomorrow is a new year, specific counters, broad trends that you'll be picking up?
I think autos will be in focus, even though I think some of the companies may not even declare the numbers because it's the first day of the year. So maybe we'll actually get the declaration of the numbers only on the second, third, fourth, what have you. So I think we'll watch out for autos in particular. We'll watch out for some of the cement stocks because of the dispatch numbers that will come out in the first 10 days. And of course, Nicky, earnings season begins. So earnings season, 1 month to the budget, which the government seems to promise will be a high voltage one. So lots to watch out for. The other key question is, of course, what would the global market support be? And how is it looking right now, Nicky, for the day? I reckon very few markets will be operational tomorrow. So maybe we take cues only from today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just checking out European market at this point of time. It's just a negative start, which is actually, sorry, the European market right now is trading with losses and looks like it's going to be, ending 2020 on a negative note because there is this whole slew of news that suggests that Britain has, had an extended lockdown, and then US has been raising some anti-dumping duties on, products coming in from EU. So that's again one bit of, negative development right now, which is playing out on the entire sentiment as a whole, because of which you might just see some amount of overhang even when it comes to Indian equity markets. But going forward in the new year, Niraj, I think I'd like to keep an eye out on IT stocks because I feel there have been a couple of reports coming in from Jefferies, Nomura. All of them are painting a positive picture of sorts. And looks like, from the face of it, at least till now, it looks like, the IT stocks performance, or rather the outperformance, will probably continue in the year 2021. But that's all that we have in today's and the year's market wrap. Thank you so much for watching.